Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Wrench. I am your host, Jay Goninen, and many of you will recognize my guest today. Russell Wickham is a technician at Country 2 and a veteran of the U.S. Army. Russell is very active on LinkedIn and has published several articles talking about his experience working in the industry. Russell, an absolute pleasure to get you on here today. One of my favorite guys in the industry, and really looking forward to kind of diving in today.
Thank you, Jay.
So how are you? How's everything?
Oh, busy as ever. Kind of feeling a little buried out there in the shop. I have a transmission going on. I have a dash all torn apart, and actually got two of them out this morning. So I'm feeling pretty good about this day.
It's a good way as we record this. This is on a Friday, and
Yes,
pretty good way to leave on a Friday, isn't it? Getting stuff wrapped up and out the door.
I'd love to get both of these other jobs done, but I'm only counting on getting one of them done. So
I'm probably the barrier. I'm holding you up from getting the other one done. Oh my goodness!
This is lunch break right now. So I take a long time ago. I learned that if you do not take care of yourself, you are going to end up with breaking down, because your body needs nutrition. It needs breaks. You can't just go all the time. You know, when you're young, you think you're invincible. Attack it, skip lunches, eat at the toolbox, and just keep right on going. But as you age, you learn you got to take those breaks. You got to relax a little bit. So I'm relaxing with you today.
That is amazing. Do you feel like that was partially industry driven when we were like going up through in a shop? I always felt like as a young tech, you're trying not to maybe show weakness or show some level of toughness by, maybe not taking a lunch break or trying to outwork everybody. And then I don't know if you settle in after that or why, I was very much that way when I was younger. Do you think that was shop driven, or do you think that's just maybe our mentality in the first place?
It may be our mentality, but it was also trained into me in the military. You work until the mission's accomplished, period. And if you've got to eat on the run and just grab some snacks while you're out doing a field problem or moving on the enemy, whatever, it was trained into me from the military. So when I came out of the military, I brought that mentality with me. So we worked until the mission was accomplished. And they'd have to run me out of the shop in the evenings because I didn't have a job done. So I was still working on it. And they're like, we all want to go home and we got to set the alarm. Get out.
How much of a transition was it for you to go from military life to civilian life? I ask that of a lot of veterans because I always feel like it's important to maybe shine a light on that transition and some of the challenges that come along with it. Was it a challenge? Was it tough to adapt to normal civilian life again?
Very much so. Everything in the military is structured. You know who your first line is. You don't jump chained if you've got a problem. So coming into a civilian world, and I'm going straight to my service manager when I have a problem, and he's like, "Go talk to the DP," and I'm like, that's jumping the chain. You're supposed to handle the problem at this level. It's only if it's a real issue that we go there together. And he's like, nah, it don't work that way here. You just go talk to him. He's a good guy. His door's open. Go hang out with him. I was like, wow.
I'm not trained that way. I'm not supposed to do that. I can appreciate that. I've said it in other content, but one of the people I'm most thankful for over the course of my career was a parts guy that worked for me that he was a Marine, and I had gone out to him one day and was saying, what's going on? You're just kind of standing around the computer. And he's like, Jay, you don't understand how to manage a military vet. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? And he said, we were trained a certain way, and this is the way that we were trained. And so we sat down and had just an outstanding conversation about it, and it really opened my eyes to it because it was something where, as somebody that didn't go through the military, I was a total blind spot for me, and I didn't really quite get that until he brought it to my attention. So I think it's one of those things where we can all learn from, and that communication between those of us that have not been in the military and those that have been, and trying to make sure that we're communicating adequately, because it is a little different. You guys were trained differently, and I think being able to understand that and adapt is hugely important.
Yes, I agree. Another thing that in the military, we are taught to overcome a lack of experience through hard, realistic training. So your military vets, when they come in, they're going to want to do training. They're going to be like, okay, how do I do my job? Get me training. Get it to me fast so I can understand, so I can learn, so that I can do this job. And if you try to stonewall them, they're going to be like, okay, what's wrong here? Why am I being held back? As opposed, you've got to be able to communicate them that we do need you to get better at physically doing this job before we can send you to more training, because we don't want you to get so far ahead that you're not able to do the basics. So we gotta crawl, walk, run. So we're still in the crawl phase here. You're still learning. So hold your horses. Let's get good at what we're doing here, and then let's move on. That was one of the areas where I was allowed to attack the training track. I did the entire distance learning track in less than 18 months through General Motors. So it was 300 some odd classes that I did in 18 months. Anytime that we were dead, anytime I was eating, anytime anything was going on where I had a down minute, I was in doing training, because that's how we had to overcome our lack of experience in the military. So I actually got too much training early on. And so I was struggling because I was a master level certified tech without being a master level experienced tech. So, that's just helping the veteran to understand the crawl, walk, run. We're still crawling here. I know you've gotten all this training and you've done it, but out here in the shop where we're actually physically doing the work, we're still crawling. So let's focus on getting good at the little things. Yes, you've done the classes for a transmission, but you're not ready to do a transmission yet. Let's work on basics. So that's something that's stuck with me, that I've tried to bring in for the guys that I'm training. Let's focus on getting good at the basics. Yes, I'd like to whet your appetite. My apprentice right now has got the head off of a Sonic because it's got oil and coolant mixed. So we've been going through trying to find where that happened. We confirmed that the oil cooler was fine. So now we're doing, more major repairs, and it's exciting to him, but I'm trying to keep him going with the little things, so let's do these recalls. Let's do these suspension jobs. Let's do these easier things a lot. And then we'll do these bigger jobs once in a while to whet your appetite. This is where you're going, but you're not there yet. So let's work on it here. We'll work on it together. But then let's load you up with a bunch of this easier stuff that you can really do fast and get good at, to build up your confidence and get you good at the basics before we completely bury you in the hard stuff.
Was it you that I had read? I had read a Shop Talk comment that was really, I think it was you that talked about the fact that you were master level certified, but weren't at that level from a skill standpoint. So being able to just, like, from your experience, talk about how, yes, it's impressive that you've got the certifications, but being in those shoes, you knew that you weren't at that level, even though you tested out at that level. Was that you?
Yes, I actually, when you were talking about the ASE test and how, encouraging people to do it, I test very well. I do very good in a classroom setting running tests. But actually translating that to physical work on the floor, my paper said that I was a master technician, but the reality was I was still a B Tech. So, I really like the advanced tests, the L1. The L1's the only one I've done. I need to do the L3. I'm intimidated by it because I haven't done
Don't
that
blame you.
much work on the floor doing EVs and hybrid vehicles. GM hasn't put a whole lot of effort into that until recently, so I've done a lot of training for it. I've done the hands-on testing for it, but when it comes to actually going through the diagnostic, I'm intimidated by the test because the L1 is a hard test. If you do not
Yes.
know what you're doing, you will not pass the L1. You actually have to have that where you can read and look at an O2 sensor and say, hey, wait a second, we've got no catalytic converter in here. My Snap-on man was going through and he was showing off the new high-end scanner. And he had a demo playing that was showing 4 O2 sensors. And I walked on that truck and I looked at it for a minute. I thought about it. I said, there's no catalyst in that vehicle because the 4 O2 sensors were doing exactly the same thing. And he went around and he came back the following week and he said, you were the only technician on my entire rep that got that right. That's just something where you have to have experience because you can run classes on these things, but until you've sorted the problem and you've studied why in the world is this doing what it's doing? Why am I getting these DTCs? Is it because the O2 sensors are messed up? Is it because there's no catalyst? Is it, why is it? And you can look at it and tell looking at the data, but that comes with experience. Yes, you can run classes. There are probably some good YouTube guys out there that do a breakdown on why it is. If you can find it, it can help you through it. Retain it, that's another gift I have. I do retain things very well. But on the flip side, it's a curse because I retain it so well, but my hands working on the vehicles don't do it at the speed that I need to do to be successful in flat rate.
You're a fascinating guy, and I want to. We typically start off with your background, right? And we kind of went off in some different things to talk about, but I do want to talk about how you got to this point in your career to where you are comfortable talking about the industry, talking about the negatives, talking about the positives, and it's been such a pleasure to get to know you. I want to learn more about your background and how you got to this point. What drew you to automotive in the first place?
I wanted to build a hot rod. So growing up, my parents moved a lot. We spent 3.5 years in Lakeland, Georgia, which is near Valdosta and Tifton. It's kind of out there in the swamplands. And then we left there and we moved to Hendersonville, North Carolina. And that was a really hard transition because prior to being in Lakeland, I'd never been at a place more than 6 months or a year. So never built friends, never became part of the culture. It was me, my brother, and my parents. That was it. So going from Lakeland, where I was all acclimated to the culture, I didn't know how to transition to a different culture because the mountain folk of North Carolina are much different than the swamp folk of South Georgia. So came in, made a wreck of things. And to cope with that, I learned I had a gift with words, and I started writing fiction. Nowadays, they would probably lock me up for the stuff I wrote back then. But no, I didn't shoot any schools or kill anybody or anything like that. So anyway, I was, for the next 10 years, I wrote. I going through high school, decided I wanted to do architecture for my career. So went to college. Well, as I was going to college, my dad sat me down and he said, what do you do? He said, you say you want to be an architect, but I don't ever see you drawing house plans. You're always writing. I don't see you designing anything. You're always writing. So he challenged me to go and be a writer. So I went in and I started out taking journalism. Journalism is an extremely cutthroat career. I was kind of struggling with it. Wrote several articles, got them published. But I ended up going out and talking at the airport, and there was an airplane sitting there, beautiful twin engine little private plane. And the guys are like, yeah, they flew in to go golfing at a nearby golf course. So they come in, they buy fuel there, they pay a fee to park the plane there. They go off, they go golfing, they come back and they fly home. I think they were from Charlotte, North Carolina or something like that. So flying to Chattanooga, Tennessee to go golf at this very exclusive private golf club there in Ottawa. And I got to thinking that would be an awesome article to talk about the economic benefit of this small airport to this community. These guys could have flown into Chattanooga, but and gotten a rental car and all that, but instead they chose to fly in here. I don't know who picked them up, so it would have been cool to get to interview them and talk to them. Well, so I go back and there was two things that they did. They did a fly-in breakfast and they had these people come in, and I was going to talk about the economic benefit. They gave me the fly-in breakfast article. Okay, this has already been covered. What's going on? Okay, whatever. And I went and did my thing. A couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, I go into the ad building, and there's the front page and the opening page of the local newspaper with my article in it, but the byline was the lady that was the liaison between the school and the newspaper. I was done. To me, growing up, studying writing, doing all this, your intellectual property is yours. That's why we have copyright laws. That's why we have protections, so that people can't take your ideas and go profit from them. So my idea with her byline on it, that was it. I was done with journalism. So I switched to English, did not get, didn't get a good vibe from that. As a writer, you've got to live life. You've got to have experience. You've got to have something to pull from. So it was like, okay, this isn't working. What else can I do? Well, I've read Carcraft, Hemmings Motor News, Hot Rod Magazine. This was my reading material in high school. And I had tried to build a hot rod, made a mess of it, no idea, no mentor, no idea that you need 6 times the space of your car for storing everything while you have it all taken apart. No idea how to negotiate that I'm doing mechanical work for you while you're doing body work for me, things like that. No idea that to have a car custom built, you're looking at thousands, if not tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to have one of these old
especially
cars
now
built. So, I ended up, fortunately, it was an 85 Camaro V6, so it wasn't a real loss to have it destroyed, but I did destroy a car. But in the process, this car, when I bought it, it had the windshield had been kicked out in a domestic dispute, and it had sat out under a tree, and water had gotten in it, and the carpet was moldy, nasty, disgusting. That had to go right away. Even if I was driving the car without anything, that carpet had to go. So took out the seats and took out the console and started trying to pull the carpet. Well, it's one of these bonded carpets, and the sound deadening goes all the way up the bulkhead to the bottom of the windshield. The whole dashboard has to come out. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to do it. So I started taking this dashboard all apart, figured out how to do it, got it all back together. I had one screw left over. And that was the first clue that I could do this job. Since that day, I've loved dash work. Anything inside the door handles, let me have it. I want it because I like doing that work. So,
you're an anomaly. There's not many people that love doing that.
Well, I know. So why did he keep giving it to these guys that hate it? Come on.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Wrench. We'd like to take a minute to talk about this week's sponsor, Jasper Engines and Transmissions. Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade in their vehicle, not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? If you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer vehicles new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for replacing a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance. Rather than trading in their car, truck, van, or SUV, install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a new vehicle or a newer used vehicle. Check out their website at jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper.
So, so that piqued your interest then, right?
Yep.
Like that to kind of transition from writing over to working with your hands.
Yep. I ended up going to Blue Ridge Community College in East Flat Rock, right outside of Hendersonville, North Carolina. Did the 1-year program there, got my diploma, worked at an Exxon station as a lube tech, and then went and got a job as a car washer at a dealership. And then from there, got a job as an alignment technician at a dealership. So did the alignment thing for 2.5 years, and had one of those older technicians always in my ear, get out of this career. You really don't want to be doing this. This sucks, on and on and on. And of course, me being young and impressionable, and still loving to write. I was, instead of going around the shop when I was dead and learning stuff, I was just sitting in my toolbox writing. So, what manager wants to send the kid that doesn't show an interest to training when, he just wants to sit at his box and write? So, and then I wish someone had said, hey, come learn with me. That's what I do with the young guys. I've got an oil changer. Every now and then when I see him sitting around, hey, come learn something. And I
Love that.
That's just me, because I didn't have that as a young person. Instead, I had that person in my ear saying, get out of the career. So I did. I did 2.5 years as an alignment tech, and we working at a Mercedes-Benz dealership. So we were Mercedes, Mazda, Chrysler, Plymouth, Jeep, and Oldsmobile. Eclectic dealership, right? Anyway, the main people that wanted alignment work were the Mercedes-Benz customers, because they believed in maintaining their car. They made an investment. Plymouth, Chrysler, you couldn't sell an alignment if you wanted to.
Not as much.
Because they didn't care. It was a different kind of people. But the Mercedes customers, they were willing to invest the money to protect their investment. So, but in North Carolina, they go home. Well, I don't say home. They go to their winter home come October. As soon as the leaves are off the trees, they're gone. And so my last paycheck at that dealership, I was making $11 an hour. I got paid for 11 hours. I left this career for 11 years. So I went, I delivered pizza for a year while going to school. I found that, I really don't like to learn in a classroom setting. I like to do hands-on. So went and started a business with my dad, doing carpentry, laying stone. Did that for 2.5 years. During that time, got married, had my first kid. Second kid was on the way. And we were making too much money to get any kind of assistant, and not nearly enough to pay for medical insurance. And besides, they considered my baby a pre-existing condition. So, we would have had to pay cash. And so I went and, let's see, this was 2006. So that summer they released Flight 93, World Trade Center. And then for July 4th, we went to Stone Mountain, Georgia, which I don't know if you've been there, but they did a very patriotic, the side of the mountain has a big Confederate carving on it. So there's General Lee, General Jackson, and one other that are carved up there on the side of the mountain. And they do this laser spectacular on the side of the mountain. They'll have fireworks and all that. So around the 4th of July, very patriotic, and um, fireworks at the base of the mountain, work fireworks off the top of the mountain. It's pretty cool. But anyway, um, they had a tribute to the troops. So I've got Flight 90, not Flight 93, World Trade Center fresh in my mind. They had the character of the Marine that came and found these people, movie magic. Um, but I'm sitting there like, I want to do something that matters. And they cover pre-existing conditions. Sign me up. So I initially been looking at like being a unit armorer or an artillery repairer, and they send me back the options: infantry, ranger, or special forces. That's the three things they wanted me in, and I'm like,
Wow.
special forces. What do they do? Well, they go and they become part of whatever place they're sent to. They support the local nationals. They're the tip of the spear. They get sent into places, and it sounded pretty cool and hoo-hoo. And I was like, well, I love playing Call of Duty. Let's go. Little did I know. Anyway, so joined the Army. Didn't make the cut. Ended up in the infantry. Still enjoyed playing with the weapons and driving the vehicles and working as a team. You really become a team. You're a team, a squad. You do everything together. I was the DD because I don't drink, but we go out on the weekends together. We hung out together. We fought together. I wouldn't say slept together, but we slept in the same building.
Right.
You did everything together. It was very much a team effort. And it was a lot of camaraderie. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the structure. I enjoyed not having to worry about my family because their medical was taken care of. The housing was taken care of. I just had to provide the food and the transportation for them, So, it was
Wow.
a good life, but there were certain things, and I ended up getting blown up downrange, and the injuries were such that I couldn't continue running. I injured my right knee, and
Wow.
being hurt, and not knowing what I've learned since about diet, I was eating all the wrong things to cause inflammation, so I never healed. So every time you're out trying to ruck, it's hurting. Every time you're doing a run, it's hurting. It just got to the point where it's like, I can't keep doing this. So um, I went ahead and got out. Of course, not being able to go up and down ladders, it's like, okay, what do I do? Well, my wife and I are talking about it, and it's like, well, we still have the toolbox from before because I never sold the tools. I kept the tools. And so I just started where my reserve unit was and started out in circles and finally found a place that would give me a chance. I'd had two ASEs. I had suspension, steering, and brakes. So I went and recertified in those. And the shop I started at, they had a 30-hour guarantee, and they put me to work. And my first week, I turned 14 hours, and I was really worried, but I got paid for 30. And nobody said anything about the low hours. Nobody complained about it. They just kept giving me work, and here's the training, and let me go at it. And so it was a good place to work. I was ambitious and a little bit dumb and got frustrated with GM warranty, so had to go try the aftermarket. Found out I was not ready to do that. And there's where I was talking about being the paper master long before I was the actual master. So went back into the dealership environment, and ended up probably at the second or third worst dealership in Tennessee. And I say that only because the other two have already shut down now. Anyway, it taught me a lot about what bad was, but it also taught me some bad lessons in that in automotive, if you want a pay raise, change jobs. Because every time I've changed jobs, except for twice, I've gotten a pay raise. So you work there for a year, end of year, no pay raise. Why not? Well, we didn't give anyone a pay raise. Okay, fine, bye. On to the next place, because the next place will give me another $1 an hour, or another 50 cents an hour, or a couple of moves. It was $3 an hour and $11 an hour. So, it's frustrating to me because you've got the people here. It's much easier to give them an extra $1 an hour, or if they haven't earned it, sit down and explain to them, have a meeting with them. The places that have given me a performance review, I've worked at 13 dealerships. Seriously. One has given me a performance review, and I was there 14 months before I got it. So I don't even know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. That's one thing that bugged me, because in the military, junior enlisted, once a month, you're getting a performance review. NCOs, once a quarter, you're getting a performance review. What you're doing right, 3 improves, 3 sustains. So you're doing these 3 things great. Let's work on these 3 things to do better. And this is why we're not recommending you for promotion, or this is why we are recommending you for promotion. And you have a clear-cut path. And that's one thing the military does right that I have seen in automotive, we have not done right at all. Now, I'm sure there are some shops that do it right, but for the most part, we don't.
Why do you think that is? Because I think this is something we try to educate on too, right? Is because we just did a shop talk video on that, right? Is the management conversation. And it does blow my mind that we don't do them more frequently in general. But the fact that you're not getting an annual review at all, and that was 1 out of 13, is honestly, it's not surprising. It's just super frustrating. And that's the hard part is techs are so hard to find right now, and we're not doing what we can just to try and that seems like a really simple thing to be able to do to I don't know, maintain happiness in your shop. And we still struggle to do that. Well,
I've worked across, as I said, a number of places. The thing that I've noticed is we train our people how to sell. We train our people how to wrench, but we don't train our people how to lead. I haven't done service manager training, so I don't know what kind of training they get, but if they're taking training on how to lead, they're not implementing. Because the results speak for themselves. So there's some people, my first manager, he had been in the military. He knew how to work military guys. He was the one that gave me the review. It was a really good place to work. But I could have used more feedback. These are what you're doing right. This isn't, I could have used that. It would have helped me feel more at home as an early vet. Since then, there's no feedback. And I've actually asked for it. Here I asked, can I have, what am I doing right? And they're like, oh, we're good. And it's like, okay, you kicked my butt for being on the computer so much. Please say something. I need that. If you're,
I think most people do.
If you're not giving me any kind of feedback, it's like, okay, well, whatever I'm doing is fine. No, it's not fine. I know it's not fine. But without that feedback, there's no encouragement to, hey, let's shape up the act. it wouldn't take much. Just, hey, we've noticed you've been spending a lot of time on the computer. We're here to work. Let's get some work done. That's how I operate. Now, somebody else might be different. It's a case of knowing your people. So if Rich and Steve watch this and they want to come out and say, hey, we saw that video and we agree, you spend too much time on the computer, I'm gonna be like, excellent, I got a performance review, I appreciate it. So it's, but we haven't been doing that, and without that feedback, to me, it's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity to shape the young people. Hey, we really like what you're doing, or hey, let's work on this area. And it's not something where, for me, I learned very early on, tell the standard, show the standard, enforce the standard. So you tell people what you expect. You be nice about it. There's no yelling and screaming and getting up in their faces and all that. It's like, okay, this is what our expectations are. But then you live it by showing them. So you expect them to be here at 8, by all means, you're here at 7:30. You expect them to be sweeping up their bays, by all means, your desk doesn't look like a pigsty. You set the standard by showing them what you expect by what you do. And then when they don't live up to it, hey, this is the standard. This is what we've shown you. What's going on? Is there something we're failing to do to help you? Or is this something where there's an actual problem that we need to address? But do we train that? Do we talk to managers about that? Do we do this kind of thing where they learn how to work with people? Some people are naturally gifted. Some people need to learn that. But are we teaching them that? Because we teach them how to manage the money. We teach them how to increase sales and stuff like that. But are we teaching them how to manage people?
And the overwhelming answer is no, right? And I think that's throughout our entire industry. And it's something I talk a lot about because I do think it's something that is of concern. Not great, right?
Technicians, are you looking for a new job? Even if you're just casually looking, you need to check out Reverse Job Posts. Reverse Job Posts flips the traditional job board around. You can now fill out a short questionnaire and let shops reach out to you with job opportunities. No resume needed. The best part is all of your contact info remains anonymous until you're ready to share it. It's a great way to explore new job opportunities, and it's completely free to use. To create a reverse job post, simply download the free WrenchWay mobile app or visit wrenchway.com and click on the reverse job post link. We've also included some links in the show notes.
So one of the things, Russell, that I commend you on has been your openness to talk about your job changes and how many jobs you've had and have been open about kind of job hopping. And I think it's cool because what it does is it allows a candid conversation. It allows kind of the elephant in the room to be talked about a little bit more. What possessed you to be so open about it in really talking about your experience? Because I do think it's really helpful for a lot of people to learn from your experience.
When I first started getting back on LinkedIn, we signed up for it in the military. I hadn't really considered it any kind of professional aid or anything like that. So I had just kind of left it on the back burner. And I started getting hit occasionally by recruiters trying to get me to join various teams and things like that. And so started connecting with recruiters, and everything was recruiter related. But somehow in the course of the conversation, I got connected with Mike Baldwin and John Frazier. And one of them had put up a post, and I reacted
very negatively to it because at the time I was pretty burned out with the career and the business, and I'd been hopping around looking for, what I thought would be a good place to work, and failing to find that. Mike Baldwin challenged me, and I don't know why it was in his post that I recognized that he had been there, but I recognized that this was a guy that had walked in my shoes, and he was talking to me about the attitude. And so this was April timeframe, 2021. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put it to the test. And so I put it to the test, and I said, I'm going to come in with a positive attitude every day. Now, we were working on pay half, so half of the month. So on a pay half, I was averaging 60 hours, which about 70 to 75% efficient, somewhere in that range. I came in with a positive attitude and said, I'm going to get this. I went after it. I asked for work. I stayed late if I needed to. I ended up the pay half with 91 hours. So, 31-hour difference from average to where I was just by changing the attitude. And I said, there must be something to it. So I tried it again the next pay half, and I ended up with like 86. And then I ended up with like hard diesel issues and stuff that I'm not real fast at, really kicked my rump. And I still ended up with 81 hours just by changing the attitude. And I said, there's something to this. At the same time, I was, John Frazier put up a post about Techs Are Ruined. Talking about how he was having a hard time recruiting because they were coming in with all kinds of demands and not working with the business and things like that. And I did some talking about that. And Saul Sedano challenged me. He said, you're a writer, write about it. And I said, okay, I will. And so I sat down, I started making posts talking about this career, about the communication issues, about things that we can do as technicians, things that leaders can do, to help improve the relationship. And as a writer early on, I learned you have to have life experience to draw on. And when you have life experience, then talk about it, share about it, help other people either do well or not make the mistakes you did. So be open about it. And so, of course, I'm going to share about the job hopping. I'm going to share about the negative attitude and what it got me. I'm going to talk about being slovenly. I'm going to talk about, your image. I'm going to talk about all these things because they all affect the work we do. They affect the shop we work for. It's all things that need to be addressed. So the only thing, they said, don't talk about three things. They said, don't talk about your money, don't talk about your sex life, and don't talk about your next move. And so those are the three things I try to avoid, but sometimes I'll even talk about the money.
I'm glad you're leaving the other two out. No, yeah. But I do appreciate it though, because I think what you said before in the podcast is one thing that frustrates shops is that they will, in their mind, try to treat people right, and then you'll get a tech that just will hop jobs regardless, right? Like because they know that if they can hop, they'll get money. And in some ways, it makes a shop feel like they don't have control, right? And like you said, I think you've got a really, really good solution to it, which is just to sit down and talk and have communication. And to me, that would help shops out so much. And then the other piece that you brought up and the thing that you talk about is the attitude piece. And I don't know how we fix that as an industry, as a whole.
That is something that we as individuals have to choose. The one thing that I can do is talk to people. This is what it was like. This is what happened when I changed the attitude. Because as a testimony, they can't challenge that. This is what happened. And, well, am I going to change my attitude, or am I going to keep being Debbie Downer and try to drag everyone down because I'm so miserable? When I was trying to start this up, I was writing about things shops could do, and of course, none of it was happening at my shop because the service manager wasn't reading anything. There was no communication. He'd come out and talk sports with a couple of guys that love sports, but there was no actual sit down with me, no nothing. So I said, I'm going to try to flip the script and just see if by going to him, by asking him to lunch, by offering to pay for his lunch, which I know that's kind of crazy, but I'm trying here. I'm trying to get the communication. So can we change this shop by having that communication? He wouldn't talk to me. He made the promise, but he always had an excuse. And then there ended up being a really bad pay period. I had 2 diesel engines that I took down for diagnosis. So I had 2 stalls down, no parts. I ended up doing, each of these diesels is about 20 hours of work for a slow guy like me who's not real experienced at them, to get them all the way down with the heads off. Now, I'm sure there's diesel techs listening to this that are like, he sucks. Because these guys are so good at it. They've done it so many times that for them it's probably 5-6 hours and they could have the heads off of an LML. But I'm not that good because I haven't done it that much.
You don't do it, yeah.
Our diesel tech there was buried. The first one went to an apprentice that ended up over his head. He was my teammate, so it ended up coming to me. The other one, I did draw it first, but it was just these 2 engines. So 20 hours a piece. Well, I'm not getting paid for any of that because I've only taken the work down. I haven't finished it yet. So I ended up with a pay half. The day before the end of the pay half, I had 15 hours. And I needed a good check because we were trying to refinance our house. So no good check, can't refinance the house, because they look at the last 2 pay stubs. So it was what it was. And so that was kind of a breaking point for me at that location. But, had there been the open communication channel, would that breaking point have been reached? I doubt it, because we could have communicated. We could have said, hey, I'm in trouble here. Let's get some work in here that I could really make some hours
turn
on.
out. Right.
What can I do? There wasn't any of that. So, I started the reverse job post, and number of places messaged me, but this one was the most interesting. And here I am a year and a quarter later, and if it wasn't Texas, I would love everything about this. I'm an eastern boy. I love the mountains, so I struggle with the plains. But
you have one of the cooler reverse job posting stories that I've heard, which is that you moved a pretty significant distance for this dealership, and from what I recall, had kind of almost been off-putting to the dealership themselves, and were almost trying to not get the job, right?
Exactly. That was the whole point. Was if I'm supposed to be here, they will hire me in spite of myself. So I told them straight up, I don't want to work on EVs for flat rate. That was right at the beginning. I said, I will work flat rate for everything else. But when it comes to an EV, from the moment it comes in the door to the moment it goes out, straight time. Because I don't want to take the risk and get dead trying to rush and flat rate it. So they've agreed to that, and so far I haven't had to work on an EV. I know the time will come. I know they will honor their word, and I will not have to work on it for flat rate. But for now, mostly the shop foreman works on the EVs. So trying to put them off, though I knew they were interested, and I laid out what I wanted. And they've, for the most part, honored everything that I asked for. So the only gripe I have is they don't do holiday pay here. But I increased my income by $30,000 by coming here. I think I can do okay without getting holiday.
Well, it's an interesting story. What I would ask is, I don't think you're the only tech that does that, right? That does it that way, where if you're going through some type of job search, maybe you knowing who holds the leverage now of maybe giving them a little bit of a hard time. What advice would you give to employers out there as they're looking for technicians and really trying to court them? What opportunities are there for them to handle that situation, to handle it and not get frustrated?
Well, it's going to be frustrating. That's just all there is to it, because there is a lack of techs right now, and you're going to look and look and look. And even when you're a good shop that does everything right, you're still going to struggle to find people. So the number one recommendation I have for shops is communicate with the people you already have. Find the biggest negative one in your shop and fix his problems. Because he's the one that's running your people off. So go find him, find out what his issues are, and fix them. Because once you fix his issues and you have him on board with you as a positive influence in your shop, you're not going to be losing people at near the rate that you have been. So find him, communicate with him, fix his issues. So that's the number one recommendation I have. Number two recommendation, work with your other people. Retain your people. When your people are happy, you're not going to have to be out hunting for new people unless you're actually growing. And that's a good problem to have. We all want that problem, right?
Yes, we do.
So let's work with the people we've got, improve our situation. Now, if there is a negative influence you can't fix, yes, it sucks, but you do need to let him go.
Yeah.
Because a negative person will empty your shop so fast.
Yes.
So now, for actual recruiting, be different. What stands out to me? The people that get on the reverse job posts and communicate with people, talk about their shop. They're excited about their shop because they like what they do. They like what they're doing. They have people that like what they're doing and are willing to get on and do these communicating about the shop. There was one in Salina, Kansas, a diesel dealer. He had his technicians sharing what they liked about the shop. I was impressed with that shop, even though I'm not a huge fan of working on diesels. I was considering going there as one of the two places that were in the final running, because he had his people up there talking about the shop. I could tell what it was like to work there. I ended up choosing the Chevy store just because they were persistent. Because I realized I was wanting to change jobs because I was butthurt about my last job. That's not a reason to change jobs. You work with the people you've got. You work with your leadership. So because I was changing jobs for that, I said, no, I'm done. I'm not going to. Country kept pursuing, whereas the shop in Kansas didn't. So if the tech tells you no, just keep the chain of the communication open. Well, if you don't want to work here, what can we do? What do we need to fix? What's the issue here? Communicate with them. If they do indeed ghost you and block you and all that, then that's a closed door. But it was a week later, and Country sent me a text, and it's like, hey, we'd like to bring you out here and let you see. And they were willing to invest to fly me to Amarillo and drive me out here into the sticks of eastern Texas. It's like, okay, they're serious. So maybe there's something good here, and I can go and communicate with them. So I went and brought my family over here on a Thanksgiving. And they met me the day after Thanksgiving and showed me the shop and showed me the tool room. And they showed me the numbers. And, I could see that I would have room. I didn't have to worry about a toolbox because those were supplied. The tools were organized. I wasn't going to be hunting for stuff. They were willing to buy whatever wasn't there that we needed. These were all holdups that I'd had from previous places. So they're willing to do all this stuff. This is a good place to work. So my wife and I sat down and wrote out a pros and cons list, and it kind of strays into spiritual, but we were praying about the decision, and we ended up choosing to come because when we were going back, we had both been praying about it, and we both came to the conclusion, do it in an RV. So we didn't know, why the Lord said, do it in an RV, but we both separately came to the same conclusion. And she has always been opposed to living in an RV. So we did it in an RV. We lived in the RV for, 8 months, 6 months, 8 months, somewhere in that time frame. Finally, sure. It's like, it's working out. So let's settle. And so we bought a house here, it took some time. So back to the original
That's
question. Cool. If you're not doing reverse job posts, write your ad so it stands out. Be different. Don't write the same old, this is what we're looking for, this is what's expected of you, this is our benefits, but, it all actually comes out of your pocket. Have something different. Have something that stands out. My aunt came down with cancer. She's a little bit younger than my dad. It was kind of a kick in my rump. So I did start looking some back in Tennessee. I'd already had a vacation scheduled, so I went and I did look around at a few places. The ads that stood out to me, they had something about them that was different. Now, unfortunately, I don't know why East Tennessee doesn't seem to know about reverse job posts because
not yet, right? We'll get there.
Yeah, they need to learn because it's a great recruiting source that allows the two of you to communicate. So anyway, people should know by now what reverse job posts are. But anyway, then most of the ads, when I come across it, it's a big corporate store with the standard, ignore it. So the people that I interact with that I would be most interested in working with, if they were in the right location, Mike Baldwin, John Frazier, these are movers and shakers that are willing to put themselves out for what they're doing.
They're different.
Now, unfortunately, both of them have stores that are open on Saturdays, and I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, so I'm in church on Saturdays, so it kind of interferes. And I learned that lesson. If the store is open on Saturday, it causes a lot of contention with the other techs to have one tech that always gets Saturdays off. So right. I don't even consider those. I like the men. I like what they do. I like how they present themselves. But their stores are open on Saturday, and I don't want to cause that contention with the techs that have to work Saturdays if they bring me on to work only during the week. And of course I'm weird. I'm willing to work every Sunday if necessary, but most places aren't open then. And it's good that they're not, because you need time off. You need time to be with your family. And stuff
You do.
like that. So
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's fascinating. And this is where I don't think this will be our last conversation on this, because I love picking your brain on this, because it does maybe speak to some of what most technicians would go through or see. What I want to finish off with here today is going back to your attitude piece, and maybe that advice for technicians on stuff that you've been through, that you've gone through. You obviously stated that the change in your attitude changed kind of your success level. Advice to techs that might find themselves in that rut right now, or really feeling like they're being negative or don't have the most positive outlook on the industry. Do you have advice for maybe that technician out there right now that's listening that might be in that situation that you were in?
Try it. Try changing your attitude and see what happens. There's nothing that prevents you from going back to being a negative sourpuss if you don't like the results. But give it a try. See if by changing your attitude, the situation improves. See if you don't turn more hours. See if the people around you don't improve their attitude towards you. See if making the change makes a result. You can always go back, but just try it.
I think that is outstanding advice, and really hope that you continue on that piece of your journey, Russell, because it's been a lot of fun following your progress and your journey as a technician, and your insight, your ability to take what's in your head and write it in a way that I think is impactful for our industry. We need more like you, right? And you do such a great job at that. So I appreciate you taking the time today to join me and keep up the conversation, keep up speaking via your writing, right? Like I think you just do a phenomenal job at that, and you can tell that you've got background in it, because it is, I think you say a lot of what a lot of people think, right? And I think that's really important in this industry. So thank you for everything you're doing. We love following you along and seeing everything that you're doing out there and everything you're doing for the industry. So thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank you all for everything you do and trying to bring this podcast forward, and with reverse job posts and the things that you do to try to educate people and improve the industry as well.
I appreciate that, man. Well, we'll definitely be in touch. For those of you that don't currently follow Russell, I would encourage you to go connect with him on LinkedIn. He's just a great guy, a great resource to follow along, and think he can help us all improve the industry. So until next time, Russell, we'll see you, I'm sure, sometime here in the near future.
Thank you, Jay.
That wraps up this week's episode of Beyond the Wrench. Be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode. As a reminder, don't forget to rate and follow Beyond the Wrench on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps us get Beyond the Wrench in front of other fantastic shop owners, managers, technicians, and dealers just like you, so we can continue to help improve, promote, and grow this amazing industry. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week.